Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, a sports ethos presentation presented by our great partners at FanDuel. As long as I can get the words out of my mouth. Week 1 is in the books, and I don't know about you guys, but I literally didn't stop. I haven't stopped for like a couple months now, but this last week was basically watch game, look at stats, look at news, watch game, look at stats, watch news, watch preseason stuff before the season stuff. Heck, I was watching preseason stuff during the first couple days of the week as we get ready for the week 1 pivot. You know, we do all of this heavy lifting. We look and we draft, and it's just like engorging yourself on fantasy basketball stuff. And then week 1 hits, and I swear to you, the workload actually kicks up a little bit. There's this little tiny exhale. We did it. We made it to the end. But really, it's just the the beginning of a crazy week. So we're going to go through all 30 teams here. It'll be a bit of a reset of sorts. This is the result of an entire, say, 3 to 4 days worth of just taking in information and watching film from these brand new games that have come in to start the regular season and trying to figure out what exactly is what with key guys that we either took big risks on or players that are performing above or below baseline. And we just got to analyze it all. And we got to come out of this week with a real good understanding of what direction we want to go with stuff. So we're going to do that, again, going through all 30 teams. I'll give you a little bit of waiver wire action, waiver wire pickup of the day. What else we got here? Some news. We'll go through some news here real quick. And at the end of this, I'll take some questions. And then I'll be answering questions on Twitter pretty much all afternoon here and even over in our Discord. So get on over to that if you can, as I try to get a little bit closer to the mic here so you guys can hear me a little bit better. News-wise, okay, so in the last 24 hours, we've seen some crazy stuff. We've seen Austin Reeves go off for 51 points, almost a triple-double, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 6 triples, 21 of 22 free throws. And if you didn't know that, go watch the Sacramento Kings telecast. They're still talking about that here today. That's because Luka Doncic is out. He's out for about a week, and that's going to yield big stat lines for Austin Reeves, as you can see. We also got some news today that Anthony Edwards will be out for 2 weeks as he deals with a hamstring issue. So bad news if you were taking Anthony Edwards in the 5 slot, which many folks did for good reason. And we'll talk about how all of that's going to be playing out. And then other big news, Brandon Miller left Saturday's game with a shoulder injury. That's no good. We've been kind of tracking that with a very small amount of news. Coach Charles Lee kind of looked like he was deferring to medical staff, and that's always not great because when it's good, they kind of will tell you with their eyes that it's good. He looked like somebody that had a report to pass along, so we'll be waiting for a Shams tweet there. Josh Giddey, questionable with a finger injury, but he was looking pretty good in shoot around this morning. So that's probably a non-issue for a guy that was getting taken at the turn of round 1 and round 2 and one of the favorites in fantasy circles this season. So anyway, as you guys know, a 30-team review takes a certain pace and cadence. So we're going to get to that. But I'll quickly, aside from shouting out my waiver wire article, which is the first waiver wire article that I've written in 10 years. And if you guys could indulge me for like 3 seconds here, I got to thank staff here at Sports Ethos. Like, you know, you, as a team, you've got to come together and make things happen. And this team here behind Andre Lamouche, Mike Passador, Keston Paul, Mark Camaro, Doc and Rick, everybody that's been working with us for the last, say, year and a half, 2 years, has really been able to understand what I can and cannot do and pave the way by having efficient operations, you know, just everybody doing the things that the way that they're supposed to be doing. That's allowed me to get healthy with my doctors, putting together the right rehab plan and doing all the right medical stuff, surgeries, you name it, 10 years. And I wrote my first waiver wire column today. It was kind of trippy, just to be honest. But it was also super cool in the sense that this is the work I've been doing anyway with these high stakes leagues over the last few years. You can't win all these leagues without doing this kind of work, and everybody I compete with does this kind of work as well, but it just never made it to the website. And as I was cranking through all of the analysis over the last 3 days, knowing that I was going to be able to put that in writing for you guys and essentially just give you all the notes, it's like the cheat sheet. You don't even have to do the work. You just look at this and you got all the good stuff that took all weekend long to compile and to get through. And it's a labor of love. I can't say enough about this business and doing the work. The work to me is the reason why we're all here. You know, it's fun to get on and talk with you guys. It's fun to do all this stuff, but it's the competition, it's the camaraderie, and it's the fact that these guys actually, you know, paved the way for me to be able to do this. So I can't say enough. I'm so appreciative of everybody here. This waiver wire column, it gave the first 5 picks free. I give the first, or I give 5 out of 10 of the top 10 waiver wire pickups that are out there. And I leave the good stuff for our premium subscribers because, hey, if I just go shout all this information out for free and, you know, our paying customers are like, what's up? Why does everybody else get this? And, you know, we're paying for it. Want to make sure that you guys get the inside track on winning your fantasy leagues. And this is about, you know, industry sustainability as well. We want to put money into the engine and make sure that everybody has, you know, proper incentive to do all of this work. If there's no money in this industry, there's no work in this industry, there's no games in this industry, and the circle goes on. So shouting out our fantasy pass holders, you guys will get one of the players I'll say right now. It's actually my must-add player of the night. It's Trey Johnson. The Athletic listed a bunch of players who are going to play a lot in Washington this year. And he was one of them. And that kind of news doesn't come out to Josh Robbins of The Athletic, who does wonderful work, has done wonderful work for the last 20, 30 years. That doesn't come out without a purpose. And that's why, you know, Trey Johnson has been so consistent to start the season. Coming off the bench, his offensive game is there. His defensive issues, the reasons that I wasn't as high on him as I was other players in this draft, those don't really look like they're a problem. He doesn't stand out in relation to his teammates. So they're just kind of letting him go, averaging 17 points, 3 triples, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 47% shooting. You know, he's got that efficient and good offensive player stat set. And right now it's good for top 50 to 70 value. I think the shooting will obviously recede. He's not going to shoot 47% all season, but I think the situation is going to get better for him with each passing day. So I got a little aggressive with my fab budget. I grabbed him in a few spots for about $150, $175 of fab budget out of 1,000. And I like that early spend because you can get the player for the rest of the season, and those dollars get more valuable as the season goes on. But 150 to 175 is also going for about 130 if you're making fab plays and trying to figure out what you should throw in the middle for him when he starts to really pick up here in the next few weeks and become more of a hotter pickup. That's just some metrics there for you. And the rest of the list has, I think, 20 other players in the list behind the paywall. So go check that out at sportsethos.com and consider getting a membership and all of the new tools. And by the way, we have a couple announcements this week for new tools on both the paid and the free side. And let's keep this moving here. And I'm going to quickly check my mic just to make sure that all is well. And it is not. It is not well. The microphone is not well, folks. So we'll have to figure out what that looks like on the fly here as we go on. But it might not be the case that gets fixed here, Andre, during this show. So if it's really bad, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just keep it moving here. Not a problem, says Andre. Okay, we just roll with the punches here. What we're going to do is we're going to break down tonight's slate, and I will get you guys all ready kind of with my thoughts for tonight's games, and then we will look at some teams that aren't playing tonight, look backwards at some action that's occurred, and basically get you through 30 teams here. So tonight, Orlando at Philadelphia. Orlando's a 6-point favorite on the road. Orlando's had slow starts for everybody, and you know, it's just kind of the way that it goes. I think the 7 of 21 that Paolo Banchero put up at home against the Bulls, I think it stopped the ball and killed this team's momentum. I think that's going to be the problem with this team. If they go south, it's because Paolo Banchero can't figure out a way to get everybody involved. It's kind of a style of game issue, and but mostly things are going to be good. And Desmond Bane, I think, is you know, folks who have read the B150 is going to be a player that we keep a close eye on because I think he's going to vastly exceed projections out there, and that'll be fun for us because we have Desmond Bane everywhere on our squads. Also, on that note, with regard to the B150, I will be putting out some sort of a infographic on where the teams landed. I already posted the team lineups a couple days ago. If you want to just check my feed, go back a couple days, you guys will see what I'm working with there. But Bain, Franz Wagner, Pello Banchero, if they start to slow down, I think it's because Banchero can't distribute the ball just quite yet. Jalen Suggs is being brought along slowly, but he's playing, so that's good news there. He's available for this one here tonight as of right now. And Banchero, just to give you an idea of how bad the efficiency issues are, he's barely inside the top 200 on a per game basis because of those bad percentages. And this has always been the issue with Banchero. So we'll watch and see. Philadelphia has been the VJ Edgecombe show. And I say that like, there's a lot in the NBA right now where I watch and I just can't stop watching, watch Wemby play. I'm not even bored watching Wemby play. I've never been bored watching Wemby play because I just want to see what's happening next. Well, VJ Edgecombe has that kind of sizzle. He has been just a thrill. Like the guy's got elevation for days. With what Philly's doing, he's just getting a lot of action off of wide open stuff. And the minute you give this guy a sliver of daylight, he's doing something good with it. Inside the top 30 with 24.5 points, 6.5 boards, 5.5 assists, 2 steals, 0.5 block. I mean, the list goes on and on. 46% shooting, 20 attempts per game. And then actually some of this valuation is a little bit low because he's hitting just 62.5% from the foul line, just 2 turnovers a game. He's getting 41 minutes a game. This is obviously going to peel back a little bit. There's players still yet to come back, Paul George being one of them in Philly. And I do think that defenses will start to kind of key in on Edgecombe. So what does this look like for him the rest of the year? Can he be a top 75 guy? I think that's totally in play. Top 100, top 125 will be the question if some of these other players start taking from him. And really, I think this is classic fast rookie start stuff. So I'm kind of in that 75 to 100 range trying to evaluate him going forward. And plenty happy to watch the Philadelphia 76ers because not only do we have him, but we have a Dembona who has probably been dropped. And what you need to do if he gets dropped is you probably need to pick him up before tonight. And I'm not sitting here saying that he's just going to be lights out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. It might be the case that he completely sucks for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that's going to be a bit of a downer, considering when I went and I looked at the film and how it looks when he's out there. He has what every team in the NBA is looking for right now. And that's a big that can shut down the pick and roll. What he does in the pick and roll is extraordinarily valuable. He's turning away plays left and right. The minutes that he's been on the floor, maybe a mistake here, maybe a mistake there. And of course, offensively, he's got limitations, but he's not looking bad on film. And you're getting into a game tonight. It's the first missed game for Joel Embiid as they start to gear up for back-to-backs. And we're going to start to see, what does this Philadelphia offense look like when they're not standing around watching Joel Embiid? Embiid has been that kind of lingering factor as they all want to defer to him. They want to kick it to him in the post if he can get past the foul line on a possession, that is. And they kind of all stand around saying, what is he going to do? We don't know what he's going to do. And he doesn't know what he's going to do. So, it all just kind of happens. And that's one of the reasons I think that VJ Edgecombe has gotten a lot of open action is these plays are really random kind of street ball plays. And he's just busting through the seam. He's making something happen where there's nothing there. You have Tyrese Maxey inside the top 10 in fantasy leagues right now, lighting everybody up. He's, I want to say quietly because Edgecombe's gotten all of the attention right now, but he's been a monster. And you have all of this open space. And at the same time, you got a guy standing out there and Embiid, whose main ability on offense right now seems to be getting people to foul him. And he's going to live like that for the foreseeable future. And it's going to make for some weird basketball. But in the meantime, players like a Dembona are kind of just sitting on the outside looking in and trying to figure out, well, can I come up here and set a screen? Well, no, I can't because, that's not really my role on this particular team right now. Whereas down the stretch last season, he was very involved and putting up second round numbers, just sort of by existing. And so his stat set, I don't see it changing wholesale over the long run this season. Joel Embiid, I don't know how long he can stay upright with Bona being the best center option that they have. I think currently right now, I mean, honestly, Joel Embiid is a shell of his old self. And it's tough, but that's what injuries will do. Embiid just outside the top 150 so far this season. 20 minutes per game, 12 points, 1.5 triples, 4 boards, 3 assists, 1 steal, half a block, 40% from the field, 71% from the foul line on 3.5 attempts per game. I don't think it's. I think with any good game, if you took a try on Joel Embiid, any good game, you go ahead and you try to market him right after that. Make that your long-term plan. And I don't know how long he will stay above the cut line in fantasy leagues. They'll back-to-back in top 150s, just not cutting it for folks. But we shall see. His big name carries a lot of value. Quentin Grimes finally had a good game. He's up inside the top 100 in 8 category leagues. 31 minutes, 17 points, and a full stat line. 0 defensive stats, but that's not too surprising. It's just good to see him getting out there. And this trio of guards, and you want to throw Kelly Oubre in there as well, who's nice and springy. Looks like he came into this season without losing any sort of physical capability. These 4 players make them super athletic. Bona makes them super athletic. Dominic Barlow makes them super athletic. He's missing the next few games with a laceration in his arm. I don't know why we put Philly at the top of the rundown. It's probably because it's an East Coast game on a Monday. There's just so much to talk about there. We're going to speed through a whole lot of other teams faster than this. But this team, I think, actually, these young guys are going to play the old guys off the floor, and they will be better for that. And I'm a little bit worried because I faded the crap out of Philly with season win totals and such. And it might be the young guys that take them over the number. If you could just get Joel Embiid and Paul George out of there, then maybe Philly would be onto something. So that's enough on Philly. But actually, one more thing on Bona. I don't want to short sell this. You go check the B150 ranks and where I had him ranked for the entire season. That's how much faith we have there. So if he's sitting around in your league on the waiver wire, go pick him up. If he's somebody that you're thinking about dropping, just put like a 3 to 4 week timer on this, and then you'll probably thank me later. And just remember, if you ever have a question about sometimes things take a while to percolate in the NBA. Remember that people wanted us to drop Nikola Jokic at one point in time, and look at how that turned out. So some words of faith there. Let's spin this into Cleveland at Detroit. I think I would take Philly in the points at home, but I don't know if I would bet that hard. Cleveland at Detroit. So Detroit, a 2.5 point favorite dog at home, and they're coming off of a game last night that was a weird game against Boston, and I think the back-to-back here might work against them. Though that said, Cade Cunningham's shooting percentages are in the garbage right now, so maybe this is his bounce-back game. I think for that reason I would stay away from this. I'm not sure I'm going to do betting on every game. It might take a little while. Cleveland, let's talk Cleveland here. So Hunter and Ball are questionable. They're kind of just ramping up for the season here, and I think Cleveland is wisely playing it safe. Sam Merrill's probably the story of this team. He's a top 40 play through 3 games, 19 points, 5 triples a game, 55% shooting from the field, 27 minutes. This shooting number is going to come back. It's probably going to look like top 100 ball for the next few weeks, but that's good. That plays. They paid him minus some shooting swings. This is probably a good deal. In fact, if you take the risk on Merrill now, you get way more games for all of this to even out. You'll probably get a little dip here pretty soon, and then you'll probably get some enhanced shooting on the other side of that, and it probably levels out to something like top 75, top 100 ball. Pistons plus 2.5, minus 108 over at FanDuel. How'd you like that, Andre? Merrill, though, I really think this is kind of a by-the-book pickup for fantasy leagues. If three-point shooting can't help you out, you don't do it. If you need 3-point shooting, this is as good as it gets for a short-term, say 2 to 3 to 4 week pickup. So consider Sam Merrill for that. Evan Mobley, if he wasn't averaging 42% from the field and 76% from the foul line, he would be even higher than his current top 20 value. He's got 6 combined cash counters, 19 points, 8 boards, 5 assists. Evan Mobley doing really, really well. And I thought we were just a tick ahead of everybody else there, but still it was hard to get Evan Mobley in a snake draft because he's Evan Mobley and everybody knows he's going to be good. Let's see here. Detroit, aside from Cade Cunningham, he's 40% from the field, 77% from the line, 5.7 turnovers per game. This has got to bounce back. I think if you've drafted Cade Cunningham at 5, 6, or 7, you know, even if you're not considering percentages, you're probably a little bit bummed about that. I'm kind of toggling between, you know, who the story is here. Is it like Asar Thompson, and the free throw numbers are dragging Asar Thompson down. But, his value is kind of more or less where you drafted him at. Ron Holland is maybe the guy. He's got a top 85 start right now. He's got some outlier free throw stuff going on, and his steals number is way too high. So this 85 probably plays more like 125, 150, something in that range with those two things normalizing there. But he's doing all of this in 20 minutes per game. He's also doing it on a team that's a little bit banged up and doesn't have great depth. So I'm good with taking a chance on Ron Holland. I do recognize that there's probably a dip just, unassociated with any of these numbers where he just doesn't get enough minutes. And it's, so these ball games, they can get weird real quick. If you're only playing for 20 minutes in a game and the action just heads all the way onto the other side of the court away from you, don't get any chances. That's where consistency issues pop in. It's really hard to be a 20-minute per game player and stay above the cut line in fantasy leagues. And that's why those players who do become super valuable, because the low high comes into effect. And if that 20 turns into 30, you could do the math from there. But Ron Holland has been profiling like that guy. And I wanted to rank him higher in the B150. If not for certain stat set issues, he would have been even higher. But I do recognize that he's a big piece of what Detroit does. And he's impressively stepping into the potential that when you watched his college film, you said, there's no way this guy can be good next year. Well, he did it a little bit faster by becoming good late in last season. And now he's doing it this season, so not a surprise there. Isaiah Stewart, productive inside the top 100, 12-7 with 1.5 triples and 3 blocks in just 21 minutes per game. And what it seems like, aside from the fact that his knee is kind of okay right now, and this could be early season knee, he's going to run up and down the floor on this thing, and it's going to be tested really soon here. But so far, so good. It looks like he and Jalen Duren, their roles are compatible. The minutes look like they're kind of going to be in the ballpark of, say, 50 minutes per game. They're playing a little bit together, but not a lot. This is enough for Stewart to be, providing sustainable value inside the top 150. If you have 2 centers in your league, if you play in a deeper league, Stewart becomes a player. So keep an eye on that. Karis LeVert's been dealing with a hamstring issue. He's played just 1 game. Duncan Robinson's been getting all the minutes, but he can't do anything with them. And we move to Boston at New Orleans. Boston had a really, they've been weird, man. Like Joe Mazzulla is just doing all sorts of lineup stuff. Like he took out Peyton Pritchard after Peyton Pritchard made one of the proverbial hustle / coach loves this kind of a play. And then he just yanked him at like the 5-minute mark of the 4th quarter in a game that they were tight in, and they really needed him out there. And I don't know what's going on with all of this. I watched him bench Neemias Queta over missing an offensive rebound the other day. So he's just doing that thing where see a mistake, bench a guy, and trying all sorts of different looks. But beyond that weirdness, it feels like the fantasy angles are fairly straightforward. I mean, nobody's really doing well right now. Almost all of the guys are either at baseline or below. But like Neemias, he had a slow start, but really got on the board on Sunday. He had 5 combined defensive stats there. He's back inside the top 100. A pretty big B150 guy right there. Hugo Gonzalez hit the radar. Unfortunately for Hugo Gonzalez, he has a run away from statistics. He does not get stats apparently. And but other than that, he looks great on the floor. He's a great defensive element for them. I think that they're going to look to him to try to bring the right approaches onto the floor. But I just don't think the statistics are going to follow. And then Josh Minott, another B150 guy. I think a lot of folks were on Josh Minott. Maybe not as optimistic as I was. He had a DNP, and he's played about 14 minutes per game in both games. Now, in this last game, which I had on for a bunch of different reasons, basically, he was kind of the guy that brought them back into this game yesterday against Detroit. And he had 10 points, 3 steals, and a triple. And I don't know if this was like the moment that things tip over for him. It feels like it's maybe like 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 moments away. And we'll see how that all pans out. But I think Minott is definitely a luxury stash. There's no problem calling him that. And he will be somebody to look at pretty quickly because we've seen the stats set accumulate fantasy value fairly quick in the very limited amount of minutes that we've seen him on the floor. But Minnesota was borderline crazy for letting him go. Not sure what the thinking was there. Maybe they could use a guy like him with Anthony Edwards out on the shelf. But we'll get to Minnesota in a little bit here. So Boston, not a lot cooking there, but you'll probably see them heat up here shortly. In New Orleans, we've got Zion inside the top 50 to 75. That's cool. 27 points, 10 boards, 6 assists, 4 steals, 46% from the field, and a svelte 64% shooting from the line on 14 attempts per game, 3.5 turnovers. I think the dunk on Wemby got into his head, and we'll see what happens from here. I mean, the Zion story is always that if he's healthy, he's going to bring big numbers, and then the efficiencies are what drag him back if you're not in a league that can accommodate for that. So we'll keep an eye on that. Sort of around the edges stuff that's interesting in New Orleans. Jeremiah Fears has been something of a top 150 value, 15 points per game, not much else, 24 minutes per game. The key with Fears that's been interesting, I thought he was too small, and I thought he was a little too inefficient to come in and have a rookie season that would produce in fantasy leagues. But what he's done, even in the preseason, is he just continues to score. He's had 15, 16, 17 points in a lot of games. And if he can just simply do that and just stay on the radar in fantasy leagues, I think he will be a guy that can kind of survive the attrition that happens over the course of a season. So I would consider him a deep league, kind of stashy, but hopefully you can get something out of him if you need him, kind of a guy right now. You got Yves Missi with an ankle injury. He's played just one game. He and Carlo Matkovic are questionable for tonight's game. And this brings me to Derek Queen. Now, I watched the film on Derek Queen last year, and I was like, holy crap, this guy can't play. He's not going to last on the court 1 second. And that was the case to start the season. He had one game at about 13 minutes, but then something happened against Wemby and the Spurs of all teams where he got 35 minutes. Yeah, it was an overtime game, but he still got 35 minutes. Presumably 30 of those were in regulation. He had a 15.6 rebound, 1 steal, 2 block game. The thing watching Queen and looking at his stats and all the things, like, yeah, sure, maybe he's a guy that gets stats, but how can you put him on the floor? Like, he can't stay on the floor. So I'll be watching a lot of Derek Queen over the next couple games, because if you were in a league that's got 2 centers, or if you're just in a deep league in general, and you want to see if you can get a guy that definitely the New Orleans Pelicans want to be on the floor, they want him to be good. I mean, they lost so much value in the draft and all the things and all the stories about Joe Dumars doing dumb stuff over the summer. All that stuff is percolating. And if Derek Queen can be good, this is a huge win for them. So I think they'll do everything they can to keep him on the floor. I'm still not convinced, but you know what? Numbers don't lie, at least for one game, and it made me consider an ad. And I think I did get him in a couple of leagues. I think I did. I don't even know. What's today? Let's move it over to Toronto at San Antonio tonight. Toronto is a 4.5 point dog. San Antonio coming off the back-to-back 4.5 point favorites. Really interesting matchup. I think both teams are underrated, so I probably stay away from this from a Vegas perspective. In Toronto, RJ Barrett's got the fast start, top 40 with 20 points in a full stat line, shooting 70, more or less, 67.6% from the field. That is not going to happen forever. That's a fact. But basically, you got to move Barrett right now. Like, just if you have RJ Barrett, just go make a reasonable trade deal, try to target something in the top 75 range. Just go do it, and you'll be happy you did it, because not only is he going to deal with the regression here, and then you're going to probably see Emmanuel quickly get some numbers instead of RJ Barrett, with Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram kind of doing what they're doing right now. I think the pendulum is Barrett to quickly, and they'll swing back and forth all season long. But the Barrett sell high, not only is it the pendulum, but it's the fact that he's going to get traded somewhere, and there's going to be all of the movements associated with that, and wherever he lands probably won't be as good as Toronto, which is finally kind of become a nice little fantasy squad where you got 4 producers and maybe Grady Dick outside the top 150. But that's a really simple team for us to handicap, and we can quickly move it along. San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama. Doc sends me Wemby clips all night, and I love it. I can't get enough of it. Thank you, Doc, for sending me the Wemby clips. It's so nice to watch NBA basketball right now. And watching Victor Wembanyama is just like, well, what am I going to see next? The clip last night was like these 2 crazy block shots, and then he runs down and chucks up a logo 3. Whatever. He's leading the league in fantasy, so that's interesting. 33 points, a triple, or probably 1.3 triples, 13.3 boards, 1.7 steals, 6 blocks. These are just numbers I'm saying. This is crazy. If he was hitting more than 73% from the foul line as 10 attempts per game, he would be lapping the field. It's a little bit tight because Luka and others have had these ridiculous stat lines. I mean, Luka went off whatever he went off for the other day, and that's kind of kept the rankings a little bit close. But by and large, we might be having that season that we talked about banning Victor Wembanyama in fantasy leagues for. It's just really a thrill to watch. We don't even have De'Aaron Fox back. That could happen and say within 1, 2, or 3 games is kind of the reporting there. So we'll see how this impacts somebody like, say, Dylan Harper, who had a big game on Sunday, and he finally got himself to late round value just in time to see De'Aaron Fox probably knock that back a little bit. Stephen Castle, he's a top 160 player in 8 cat leagues, or he's a top 320 player in 9 cat leagues because of 6.3 turnovers per game, 52.4% from the foul line. This is the Stephen Castle story, but he's averaging 17, 6, and 5. Just under 3 cash counters. This is okay if you don't care about percentages or you're in a points league. Devin Vassell, boring late round value. Julian Champagnie showing up right around the top 150, so good for him. Keldon Johnson had a big game, but I think with Fox coming back, you can flat out ignore that. Let's get to Atlanta at Chicago tonight. So Atlanta 2.5-point favorites against Chicago at home. It looks like Josh Giddey is going to play in this one. So we should see just a matchup between 2 teams that kind of want to get after it. The fact that Atlanta is a favorite on the road here suggests that Kristaps Porzingis and Jalen Johnson and Zachary Risacher have a pretty good chance of playing. We'll see. They've each got flu right ankle and right ankle, respectively, for those guys. So I would kind of expect Atlanta's trying to get right now. And I think that's something that's important for those guys to get on the floor. So that would be my guess, is that's what's happening. Onyeka Okongwu, nice fast start, top 40, top 50. So everything's good there. But the big story in Atlanta is Dyson Daniels. A lot of people, it's funny, there were a lot of people fading Dyson Daniels this year. I was not one of them. I tried to kind of like wrap my head around the fade. I tried to wrap my head around the fact that these steals are such a heavy weight to his value. And so far, he's been faded by his own team. He's giving up a lot of shots to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Dyson's getting 6 shots, and Na is getting 14 shots. So you can do the math there. So Daniels is really struggling at a foul trouble game. And there's a question about those steals. And if the ball has really been given to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, all that excess value that Daniels got last season, where he was kind of a second, third, fourth ball handler for the squad, and he kind of had a green light to take it to the rack, and you saw these well-rounded lines out of Dyson Daniels to go with the outstanding steals number. That might not happen. This could be a big value loss, but it's also the first week of the season, and these things tend to work themselves out over the long term. So this is definitely a buy low moment for Dyson Daniels. You need to probably kind of like, look in like the 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 or 70 range. I think there's not a lot of grasp for what Dyson Daniels, what the value proposition is there. And when he's putting up numbers that look like what they look like right now, I think people are panicking. I think you can get in there with a top 75 offer and pluck a Dyson Daniels. Hell, Dyson Daniels wasn't getting drafted until like 40 or 50, even in competitive leagues. And if he has a reasonable facsimile of what he did last season, he will be so much higher than that. And that was sort of the rationale for my high projection for him. And I'm not even that much of a Dyson Daniels guy. There's people that are Dyson Daniels people that are way higher than me on Dyson Daniels, but the numbers suggested that he needed to be a lot higher than where he was drafted. And right now it's a great buy low. As for Na, I think he's a top 100-ish guy right now, hitting just 37% of his shots, and he's also hitting a lot from the foul line. These two things will even out. If he can keep this volume up, if this is really his role, if this was the promise that was made to him before he got to Atlanta, then this is where he will be, is about top 100, top 125. That's not valuable in a lot of settings, but if you ignore the field goal percentage that's naturally dragged his value down in the past, or top 100, top 125 plays, then I think this is a great pickup on a guy that people had mostly in the 150, 175 range heading into this season. Chicago, Trey Jones has been an early round value because he's averaging 4 steals per game, 12.5, 3, and 8. And I think the news with Giddey possibly playing today, it feels like he's playing today just with how much he's running around there at shoot around. And it doesn't seem like we have any news on that, but I think he will play. It's just my guess. Trey Jones will just sort of be the player that he's been the last few games. I think there's some regression on the way. But you've got Kobe White out, and that's going to result in Trey Jones having a big time role for this team, it looks like. And it's not like Kevin Huerter is a healthy player. So at any point in time, Huerter could fall apart. So there's just a lot that lines up well for Trey Jones. I think you look at him as a 1 to 2 week play, and maybe he comes out of this thing with a role in Chicago, and maybe you get some continued value. But 2 weeks of Trey Jones doing mid round, late round, and heaven forbid he keeps it up kind of stuff. I think that's good fantasy business right there. Josh Giddey's had a slow start, bad peripherals, bad percentages, a little bit of a buy low moment. So get in there and get on that. Midas Bacelis, big time foul trouble in a spot, looks great. A little bit of the Billy Donovan business. I think that Billy Donovan is still this kind of coach that he's not going to give it all to you until he gives it all to you. And then when that happens, it's going to be known to everybody involved that this is going to be your team, your season, a la Giddey, a la Kobe White. These are guys that had to wait a little bit, and Bacelis is just the next guy in line to wait. So it hasn't been good for fantasy GMs just yet. But I have not been as excited about a player just, with the entire package of what he does. He's on that short list of like players that have my attention. And when I'm flipping through the league pass, I want to see what Midas Bacelis is doing because I think that he has high-end potential in the NBA. We'll move it along to a team that has no high-end potential in the NBA. That's the Brooklyn Nets. They are terrible to watch. They're a terrible fantasy team to care about. I don't care about them at all. Igor Demin, if I'm saying that right, probably not. He had a quick start, but then Sunday he had a big old dud. Ben Seraph got some PR, but then he's been a big old dud. You got Porter. Cam Thomas went for 40. Porter has been basically valued right where you draft him. Nick Claxton a little bit under where he was drafted. Zaire Williams is on the radar, but he's already missing time because of his back. Questionable for this game. What a mess. Let's talk about a team that's actually important in Houston. Alperen Şengün, top 15 start. I actually had Şengün maybe a little higher than certain people. Now, I didn't have him higher than the guys in high stakes. Oh, boy. They're drafting Şengün in the back end of the first round. They're drafting them early in the second round. And I get it. And especially, in these drafts that occurred on Tuesday night and Wednesday night, and you got to see the Tuesday action and you get to see what Steven Adams is doing out there. Steven Adams is like a left tackle or a right tackle out there just blocking the big guy that would be big enough to possibly stop Alperen Şengün and just clearing him out. And then Şengün gets to pick on the even littler guy. And he's just doing what he wants out there. And he had a little bit of regression. He's a 40.5% from the field guy right now, Şengün. He's shooting probably a little too much from deep. You like to see the 3-pointers, but is it sustainable? Does it take away from your value proposition? Does it take away from your field goal percentage in a roto setting? Maybe you don't care about that in a head-to-head setting, but you got to plan for that. And you got to know that there's a value dip there that you're kind of planning around. So Şengün, 21 attempts per game. I thought I saw something interesting in film the other day when Şengün and KD had a little stare off about whose ball it was. And that's the stuff that they're going to be working around. But this Steven Adams thing is really, it's funny. It's almost like not even about Houston. It's about how the NBA is going to operate. So many teams have taken Houston's model and have tried to use it to use a too big look because they want to get rebounds, they want to get possessions, and it's a bit of a numbers game with that. And Adams, inside the top 100, by the way, 7.5 points, 11.5 boards, not much else. But, these numbers play in fantasy settings. He has literally, ushered in this kind of an offense where Şengün theoretically could be a better, second round value than where he was getting drafted in, say, like the third round. And if you draft him in the first and the second round, you have to feel pretty good about this start. I want to see how it all works long-term in Houston, aside from the fact that I'm not sure that Adams can hold up in this scenario. And I'm not sure that teams will be as worried about Adams, in certain configurations. And in certain configurations, Adams works for Houston. In certain configurations, he doesn't. what's Houston's changeup to this dynamic that they've created, not just in Houston, but around the league. I want to see what that all looks like over time. Then you have the Reed Shepherd part of this situation where he's just inside the top 175, despite shooting 27% from the field. Go Reed Shepherd, basically on the strength of 5 cash counters per game. And that's the big kind of like, I'm laughing. I got Reed Shepherd everywhere. He's a B150 guy. He's, one of many, but he's, he was there. He was available in a lot of drafts. Now, I probably would have drafted him more if not for that field goal percentage, because the team builds that I was building kind of kept me away from these lower field goal percentage guys that were still valuable, still available in drafts at a profit, but team build becomes everything. So I didn't get him as much as I would like to, but I'm looking at this and I'm going, this is rock bottom for Reed Shepherd, yet he's still getting you 5 cash counters per game. He's got this way of getting defensive stats while also being called out in public, Twitter and various media spaces as a non-defender. So I don't know if that's the action coming to him or if two things can be true at once, but the bottom line is that he just gets defensive stats. That is going to help buoy his value as he works through this question of how do I get offense next to Kevin Durant, Alperen Şengün. And by the way, it didn't help that he had OKC and all of their great defenders draped all over him the other night. So he's going to have to find a way to get off of high-end defenders in the NBA. They're going to have to develop a pick-and-roll game for him. But it's hard when the entire offense is based around Şengün, Adams, and KD. So Shepherd, this is as bad as it's going to get, and yet he's still hanging around on the strength of these defensive stats. We'll have to see how this plays out for the next couple of weeks. Buy low. Amin Thompson, really struggling. Efficiency, just inside the top 250 through 2 games. Probably overdrafted. Amin Thompson was maybe the B150 poster child last season. And this season, seeing him go right next to Şengün in many cases, he's going to have to be perfect to make that work out. That said, the percentages in a head-to-head setting aren't as important, and you might still get that kind of value from Amin Thompson, and he is that good. There's nothing. I have no problems with Amin Thompson. That guy is that good. Tari Eason just inside the top 250. Practically no production there. And this is a big theme in week 1. Teams, they figure out what's their number 1 goal, what's their number 2 goal, number 3 goal, number 4 goal, and then they work on it. And how the stats unfold as they work through that progression is sort of hard to track. And it's why the beginning part of the season is such a buy low, sell high festival. Reminder, before I skip into Oklahoma City at Dallas, at the end of the show, we'll do some questions, and then I'm going to be answering questions on Twitter and also in our Discord. Check out sportsethos.com to get a link to the Twitter, or probably the Discord. About 20 years ago, if you asked me, could we just not have cell phones and not have 50 platforms and not have this, I would have said yes. So Oklahoma City at Dallas, if not for this show, though. This show makes it all worth it. Oklahoma City, you got your classic Shea's already cooking. Chet Holmgren's bringing back late first-round numbers. He's questionable for tonight's game. They got 3 games in 4 days here, so you might see a little bit of conservative decision-making over there in Oklahoma City. AJ Mitchell is the story for me. He's sitting on a top 40 to 60 start. Big numbers, 19 points, almost 2 triples, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, decent percentages. AJ Mitchell has been good every time I've watched him play. I don't know what to say. It's the cavalry's coming back. It's going to be bad. Jalen Williams is not going to just cede the floor to AJ Mitchell. He's going to complement AJ Mitchell now. But AJ Mitchell has been good. So, like Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace has been good for a while. Being good gets you on the floor. I think what this means is maybe it's not open season for Aaron Wiggins to just step into an enhanced role, though he's just inside of the top 125 and 28 minutes per game. I wonder if it's Isaiah Joe that gets brought back. I wonder if it's Alex Caruso that gets put on more of a leash. He's already out with a concussion. I don't know how this is going to work out for AJ Mitchell. All I know is you're going to get 3 games in 4 days to test this out. And if you got Jalen Williams on your team, stop what you're doing and add AJ Mitchell. You're going to cover the 3-game gap of production that you're missing from Jalen Williams for whenever he gets back. And you just might get a late round guy out of AJ Mitchell. And then I do think he's capable of producing more. So we'll see. These numbers are a little bit lifted but they're not that much lifted. And a 27-minute role for a player of his type doesn't seem that crazy. So yeah, the cavalry's coming back and it's going to get tight, but I just believe in AJ Mitchell to be maybe a late round guy. And I know that's not the strongest to take and not the strongest of values, but considering where he plays and the fact that a lot of people penciled him, he didn't even get drafted, I don't think, in 30 deep. And I think I added him somehow and dropped him, and I couldn't pull it off because I didn't have the roster space or something like that. That's how low of an opinion people had about AJ Mitchell. And I doubt he was drafted anywhere, and hopefully he's on some fantasy teams out there right now. As mentioned, Caruso concussion, so we'll watch that. Hartenstein, Isaiah Hartenstein, probably going to be a top 150 guy, maybe like 100, 125, but could fall easily to like 140 because he's not getting you as many defensive stats. He's not as involved in the action. I think his degradation in lateral quickness is going to have a lot to do with that, unless there's an injury to Chet. I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed with Hartenstein this season. And then Dort, in terms of 3 games in 4 days, he's shooting 24% in the field. So if you want to catch lightning in a bottle, consider a 3-game pickup for him. In Dallas, Cooper Flagg, point guard, has been a flop. We should just end the story right now. No, he's going to be good, folks. He's playing on a team with like 7-footers, and he's asked to orchestrate. And by the way, a lot of these players can't orchestrate on their own, so they're just figuring it out right now. Jason Kidd loves to do this. He did it with Giannis Antetokounmpo when Giannis Antetokounmpo had no point guard cred at all. He came out in Summer League. He said, "This is my point guard." So I think this is a little bit from that book. And I don't really think it matters here. I think it's just a title at this point. They're going to do all the same stuff they would do on the floor anyway, just with less D'Angelo Russell. And he's a top 80 value flag after 3 games, just 3.3 assists per game at point guard. You know, the bigger issue is the 43.9% hits from the field. He needs to raise his level across the entire stat set to justify what was like a top 25 pick in a lot of different settings. I think people just thought Flagg was going to go bananas, and he could still go bananas. It's just going to be a heavy lift for him to continue to do that all season long to meet that ADP. And unfortunately, you know, slow starts can have an impact there. He's going to have to get it together really, really quick to compete at that level in the ranks. So we'll keep an eye on that. Phoenix at Utah tonight. Utah, I like Utah. They're kind of an interesting squad. I think they're going to be better than people thought. I'm looking for a line here. I'm just curious. Where's my FanDuel? Where's my FanDuel? Somewhere else. Phoenix at Utah. Okay, Grayson Allen. That's cool. You wanted to get fat last season. You want to be skinny this season. You want to make me look bad. That's fine. Inside the top 50 over 3 games, 33 minutes, 16 points, almost 4 triples, full stat line. And, you know, this is a healthy Grayson Allen. I think last year he wasn't healthy. I think the weight gain probably either one was chicken, one was egg. It was the weight gain, or, you know, whatever happened first led to the next thing. He just wasn't healthy last year. He couldn't stay on the floor. He couldn't move on the floor. He couldn't defend. Well, he's doing all that stuff this year. He's having the season that I thought he would have last year. He's having it so far to start this year. Doesn't hurt that Jalen Green's out. By the way, Jalen Green was running wind sprints at shoot around. I don't know if he was going up and down the stairs, but he was going by the stairs. Couldn't catch it all. Jazz -1 is the line there. -1, -144. Huh. I'll think about that. 114. Thank you very much, Andre Lamouche. Wasn't computing in my head. That's an interesting line. It's a really interesting line there at FanDuel. Allen and Dillon Brooks have really been the leaders in production there in Phoenix. Dillon Brooks did make the waiver wire article. He's inside the top 50 with 30 minutes a game, 19 points, 3 triples. It's all there right there. He's got 2.7 steals against the Kings and DeMar DeRozan. He was as much Dillon Brooks as Dillon Brooks could be. He didn't injure somebody on purpose that I'm aware of. But he's kind of the guy right now while Devin Booker is just sort of distributing. And I think what happens with Book is they tell him he's going to be point guard, and they tell him that he's going to be a distributor. And he goes, all right, guys, I'm going to set you all up, and you guys want to get you going first, and then I'll get going after that. So buy low on Devin Booker. I don't think that's going to probably move the needle with a lot of folks out there, but maybe Maybe. This production is going to shift away from Allen and Brooks to Devin Booker, and you'll see the old passing of two ships there. You've also got Ryan Dunn, kind of quiet late round value. I wasn't a Ryan Dunn guy this year. I think the quad of forwards that are surrounding him, especially Nigel Hayes, Fleming, these two guys I think can play and are as good, if not better, than Ryan Dunn and Royce O'Neal. But right now it's the Ryan Dunn and Royce O'Neal show. I think they'll just continue to have late round value. So they're guys that get forgotten about. If you need to plug in a forward, give them a look. But actually, the top story in Phoenix, it's not Mark Williams. It's not Devin Booker, though I do have some Mark Williams takes. It's Colin Gillespie. Colin Gillespie is one of my favorite players right now. I wanted to rank him even higher in the B150, except, I didn't want to go extraordinarily crazy. But he is this guy. It's easy to make comparisons to other white players. He's kind of like, it's like if TJ McConnell was a lot better coming out of college. Colin Gillespie has offensive engine kind of written all over him. He has Austin Reeves-like slither on snake screens and working the pick and roll. He can shoot. He's tough. Dylan Brooks calls him Villain Jr. He's got that little edge. He doesn't back down when he gets isolated on defense. It's not like an immediate win for the other team. He makes the right plays. It's all good for Colin Gillespie. He's a top 150 guy through 3 games, and this was one of the selling points here. He's good in limited minutes. He's efficient with his time. He's around the basketball. The points aren't great, 9 points, but the threes, 2 threes a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. 0.7 steals and 0.7 blocks. And so, you got a team where Jalen Green is already dealing with a hamstring issue. Normally he's an 82-game guy. Devin Booker's been an injury guy his entire career. One of those two guys goes down, it's game over. Colin Gillespie is going to run, say, top 75 value the rest of the season. He'll be better than Reed Shepherd. Like, Gillespie was available with the 16th pick in every single one of my drafts, and the only time I wouldn't draft him is if I had 7 guards. Colin Gillespie is going to be a fantasy guy for the rest of his career. He is that good. So go get Colin Gillespie. Mark Williams, he'll be a go tonight, I'm pretty sure. Not getting it done in the peripherals, but 19 minutes per game, 8.5 rebounds and a block, and not much more. But with Mark Williams, he needs time to play with these the Bookers and everybody that's going to be delivering him the ball. It's not fair. The ramp up for him was prescribed and agreed upon by all parties involved. Fun fact, Mark Williams and Colin Gillespie were college roommates. And I do think that plays into this connection that this team actually likes Mark Williams and they want things to work out well for Mark Williams. But they all got together and said, dude, you can't handle 40 games. What are we going to do with 82? Well, let's ramp you up slowly. No back-to-backs, obviously. And let's just be super careful with your minutes and just play the long game. And the long game with Mark Williams is if he can play 60 games, he's going to be a lot more valuable than people thought he was heading into the season. And that's really all there is to say about Mark Williams. On the Utah side, Walker Kessler started off nice and fast, top 15, 25-ish value, 29 minutes. He's hitting 3-pointers. He's stealing. He's blocking. He's got 9 rebounds a game. This is all good for Walker Kessler, and all we need to see is him stay upright. And it wouldn't hurt if the Utah Jazz won some games early so they could get a vibe about this team and it wasn't just tank city immediately. And I don't think it is. I think this team has some good players, and I think they're going to kind of shove into the middle a little bit here to begin the season. They know about lottery odds real well, and I think that they're tired of losing a little bit. Lauri Markkanen, top 40 value, 35 minutes per game, big scoring numbers, big 3-point numbers. You know the story with Lauri Markkanen. Same story as a few of the guys we just talked about. If Lauri Markkanen plays 60 games this season, he's going to outpace expectations easily. He was ranked so highly in the B150. It was so uncomfortable. It just felt so bad, like having him that high. But, at some point in time, every player that's been in his spot has to ask themselves, do I want to play 50 games a year for the rest of my career? I'm not getting any younger. At some point in time, they shove in the middle and they stop playing the long game with their injuries. And I think Lauri Markkanen is that guy this season. He was falling to like 75 in certain cases. And go check out the B150 and see where he was ranked. Keontae George, top 55, 17 points. It's all kind of good for Keontae George right now. It feels like he has efficiency on his horizon, on his radar. It's not showing up right now, and his field goal percentage is just at about 41%, but 90% from the foul line for Keontae George. These two things will normalize, of course, but it just feels like there are other good players on the team, and Keontae George doesn't need to go out there and chuck, and aim for like 35% instead of aiming for 40. And heaven forbid he can get 41, 42, 43. Then the value really starts showing up for Keontae George. My second favorite K George in fantasy leagues right now. Bryce Sensabaugh doing his thing, top 75 value early. I'm not a huge Bryce Sensabaugh guy, but I do think that there's a case to be made for him being a late round value long-term this season. And if that happens, then that's more than people thought would happen. So good for him. Walter Clayton with top 90 value. Now, Walter Clayton was somebody that I wanted to have more of, but there were players that were ranked higher than him. And Walter Clayton, heaven forbid, he has a little bit of a Steph Curry game. I just want to whisper that for you guys. Don't tell anybody I said that, because I would get shot, I think. But he has a little bit of a Steph Curry game, that Walter Clayton, and there's so many differences, guys. But it's this off the dribble pull that he has, and as he develops this, it has the potential to move itself into a stat set that would be in the vicinity of a universe, of a galaxy that Steph Curry might have once walked through in his interplanetary life. And that's great. He's averaging 10 points, 1 triple, 5 boards, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, and that's why he's got the top 90 right now. And I don't think that Utah has any reason not to play this guy. It's not like he's a liability right now too much. I mean, he does some dumb stuff, all rookies do, but this is a guy who came into the league with a reputation for winning, and that helps a lot as well. So I think Clayton's got late round value all season long. I think his end of year result for cumulative rankings could easily be in the 100, 110 range. So if you play the long game with a lot of these guys, I think you're doing good fantasy business there. Kyle Filipowski, top 135 and 25 minutes per game. He fell like a rock in draft season. He was like the belle of the ball in July, and everybody's shouting at the top of the mountains, trying to kill his fantasy value for everybody else. And they couldn't do it because Kyle Filipowski's like, I'm not playing the preseason. I don't play the preseason. I'm Kyle Filipowski. I don't know why he didn't play, but he played a little bit toward the end, and it was like, oh, I guess he still looks like Kyle Filipowski. Well, he's being Kyle Filipowski right now, and I think his 25 minutes per game are kind of set in stone, and I think eventually they won't want to play guys like Yusuf Nurkic, and you have a lot of injury potential around him. So the old days of Kyle Filipowski taking my fantasy teams into high-stakes fantasy championships and us all counting our money together and celebrating Kyle Filipowski, I think they are ahead of us. But it's going to be probably late round value for a little bit here, and that's fine. I think it's probably around a top 80 finish for that guy. Maybe. We'll see. Taylor Hendricks had one good game, one bad game, and he's another guy that could have some value here. And Ace Bailey, really slow start. Give this guy some time. Another guy that I watched film on over the summer where I said, damn, that's crazy. And it almost like, that's not fair. You can't be that tall with that kind of shooting ability, and you can't do this. Then I saw him standing next to Wemby, and I was like, he's just a guy, as are we all. Denver at Minnesota. Denver, Aaron Gordon, a top 5 start. So there's your sell high. I can't even read you his stat line. I just don't think it's real. Jokic is just fine. A little bit of a slow start, but you don't worry about that guy at all. Jamal Murray inside the top 20 looks great. And this is something a lot of people were predicting. And I think Jamal Murray's ready to have maybe his last best season in the NBA, that peak, proverbial peak season. Cough. Minnesota, so Anthony Edwards, 2 weeks with a hamstring, not great, right? It was hard to draft Anthony Edwards. I was passing Edwards in drafts based on build. And this is very setting specific and very league specific. The rankings are the rankings, and that's where I ranked Anthony Edwards. He might not get there now if this 2 weeks costs him a few games. He's going to have, a little bit of work to do to climb up and over the number there. But Edwards out. Okay, well, what happens now in Minnesota? So Julius Randle was a top 25 guy kind of before that happened. He's going to keep putting up big numbers. Dante DiVincenzo had a slow game, and things weren't great without Edwards. It wasn't like everybody rushed into the gap and they, everybody got those stats and they just kind of made off with them. It was a bad game without him. But like Dante DiVincenzo has to be relied upon more. He got the starting point guard job. This is a pretty big deal. Top 100 or better for Dante DiVincenzo this season, with a real expectation that he's going to be top 75, maybe even better. That peak Dante DiVincenzo season we saw 2 seasons ago. That's what I think people kind of in their mind, once the point guard position was announced, they said, yes, I got him as kind of 100 or 120 guy, and now I have so much more upside. So don't be concerned about the slow start, and it might get tougher. I mean, this team is not that good without Anthony Edwards. Like, one of the reasons it's hard to get on Minnesota, even though they do so well in the playoffs because of Anthony Edwards, is that they're not that good without Anthony Edwards. And so this kind of stuff can make people's numbers dry up a little bit. They can make the efficiencies go bad. So obviously the scoring comes down, and then they start playing, bad basketball and all of the different things. Alternatively, you get the injured star theory cooking, and teams will come together, and you will see guys stepping up into those stats. So that's also a possibility here. Edwards is such a big piece of this team, and I don't know about the constitution of some of these guys like Randall, especially to Gobert, to kind of step into the leadership gap and be the dogs and get out there and make teams pay and let injured star theory do its thing, and everybody gets the stats and everybody's happy and so on and so forth. I think this could be a little bit of a dip, but we'll see. Both things could be true. And then Terrence Shannon played just 10 minutes in that game on Sunday, despite Edwards only playing 3, and I thought that was weird. The whole game was weird against Indiana. Indiana trotted out Isaiah Jackson and Jay Huff together a lot in that game, and that was weird. It was just a weird game. Week 1 is weird. The fact that Terrence Shannon played just 10 minutes, that was weird. This is the guy that has stepped in and done things in the playoffs and been extraordinarily impressive in the playoffs. And then watching him over the summer, whether it was summer league in the preseason, his offensive game has matured. So, hey, offense plus defense equals good player. And this hasn't happened yet for Terrence Shannon. He's had a couple good lines through the preseason and into the regular season, but 10 minutes really dampened the outlook for Shannon. And there's not enough defensive stats here to really bring Terrence Shannon to the forefront of the fantasy discussion. Just don't be surprised if he gets put in the lineup and he gets 25 or 30 minutes once they have time to regroup and say, okay, hey, what are we going to do? No Edwards? Well, we got a guy named Terrence Shannon here who can bring some of the characteristics that Edwards has physically to the equation, and the added offense should just be bonus. I would be looking for high volume popcorn stat lines, points, rebounds, assists, and kind of out of nowhere in this next game. So that'll be something I'll be watching out for big time. Memphis at Golden State. Memphis, Cedric Coward shouldn't have been drafted as late as he was. This is a guy that when you look at him, you go, kind of like Asar Thompson, you go, I think you at your peak might have been kind of a good fit to cover LeBron James. Like you have the size, you have the lateral quickness, you have the strength. You're on that short list of people that I would in like, you grab peak LeBron, whatever year you want to grab peak LeBron, and you go, okay, can you defend that? And then if you're not laughed out of the room at that point, okay, you're left with a very small short list of players, and Cedric Coward profiles like that. And he couldn't hit a 3-pointer to save his life in the preseason. And boy, has he made up for it, hitting 70% from the field, 77% from 3-point, 19 points, 3 triples a game when you average it all out, 4 boards, 2 assists, 1.7 steals, 91.7% from the foul line, just for good measure. And this is not going to continue, folks. I mean, he's a top 30 or top 12 guy in 9-cat leagues. This isn't going to continue. It's like a question of whether or not he will even have a consistent rotation role above 25 minutes per game for me. But you're Memphis. He fits what they're trying to do with the kind of the flowy, fast-paced offense where everybody's sort of running around in a circle out there in a wheel, if you will. And somebody like Cedric Coward, whose skill set really trends towards shooting and straight line driving at this point, but defensively, what he brings and just physically what he brings to this equation, I think it's a positive. And I don't think Coach Asalo is going to have a problem putting him on the floor. I just hope that it's like 26, 28 minutes per game. and not something like 23, 24, 25, because 23, 24, 25 can get down beneath the cut line in fantasy leagues and down beneath your start line in fantasy leagues. And it'll change his value proposition entirely. If he can keep that floor up to a place where you feel comfortable with the risk, having him in lineups or, just rostering him in certain shallower or even intermediate settings, I think this is a really big deal for him, because otherwise he will continue to get better as the season goes on. He will continue to get more opportunities as Memphis, known for their injury bug, will fall apart. You got Jaren Jackson, you got Zach Edey. I mean, you just got a lot of help. Santi Aldama isn't really a healthy guy. By the way, slow start for him inside the top 160 in just 21 minutes per game. Offensively, Aldama looks great. He's just got to stay quick so he can stay on the floor. But these aren't guys that stay healthy. So Cedric Coward absolutely got a huge fantasy bid in fab situations over the weekend. I mean, there were teams paying 300 of 1,000 fab dollars to get him. 200 was probably the more common number, 220, 230. These are big plays for a guy that definitely deserves it. I'm just concerned that he can stay at a top 75, top 100 level. And we'll see. If I had to throw a dart right now, I say Cedric Coward finishes the season as a top 90 guy on the year. But, it's just 1 week. We'll have to see what if he's streaky, with the shooting. I mean, he could not hit a 3 in preseason to save his life. I think he went 0 for like 11 or something. Comes back and he hits his next. Some shooters are like that, and it's hard to gauge those. You kind of have to get on the wave at the right time or recognize what the wave is for being the wave. Jalen Wells at the bottom of the top 300. A lot of heavy hitters made big plays on Jalen Wells, and they're not feeling great after week 1. But that's kind of what we expected here. I love Wells, the player, just a fantasy asset, and he needs to develop some sort of dribble drive game that can be reliable, because the 3 is there and the physicality there is on defense. The physical profile's there. He just needs those extra kind of escape shots so he's not so predictable on the straight line drive as teams run him off the line. Golden State, Al Horford out tonight. He gets another 2 games on Tuesday, Thursday. So if you're in a pinch for a big man, give him a look, because it's possible he might run that Tuesday, Thursday table. Steph Curry, he's scorching inside the top 3. Steph Curry, big B150 guy. He's just got to stay healthy. There's nothing about his game that's declined. He's that dude. He's my favorite NBA player of all time, and I don't think you should put a limit on the discussion that you have with him regarding to the greats of the NBA. I have Michael Jordan as my top NBA player of all time, but with Steph Curry, I just don't put a limit on the discussion there. He has changed the game of basketball, and in a game that's changed, he is still moving the boundary outward as an old man in the association. So I don't put a limit on Steph Curry, neither should you. Jimmy Butler sitting on a top 30 start. He's the piece that makes this work. Jonathan Kuminga inside the top 75 with 16 points, 2 triples, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 31 minutes. It's all gravy right now. The 55% shooting is not going to hold up. We're going to have to see what happens when adversity hits, what happens when the trade rumors hit, what happens when Draymond gets pissed off at him. Draymond Green inside the top 70. I think this is just working. You add Jimmy Butler to this equation, it was a force multiplier that's shown in the numbers, it's shown in the records, it shows in the playoff run, it shows in the way that they play, it shows in their motivation. Draymond Green probably doesn't want to sit as many games this year. Steph Curry probably doesn't want to sit as many games this year. Jimmy Butler doesn't want to sit as many games this year. Jimmy Butler, for being a destructive force in Miami and bringing the great Pat Riley to his knees in Golden State, he is the man, and he is pushing this team up the power ranks, which I will probably have an update for in the next coming weeks as we get geared up here for the NBA season. Can't wait to do those power ranks, because it's like taking fantasy analysis and just sort of boosting the conversation that largely resides around ESPN topics, though not anymore. The NBA this week, I got to say, man, I love the pivot towards quality in the NBA product. On NBA TV, no commercials. It's so freaking great. They got like historic little look backs, and you got like these they're like little mini documentaries for 20 seconds about Jalen Brunson and his father, or like here's Kareem shooting a sky hook. I don't know if that's one or not, but it's just like all this like nostalgia and this like building up the history of the league. I don't need to see like one of those walk-in bathtubs that you can soak your body in, or like what was the sunsetter sun thing that you can put out in your yard. That was a good one from like 10 years back. Or 5 million ads for stuff I was about to say, but I'm not going to say it anymore. It's just clean, and this is the way that we need to kind of take things. There's so much crap right now. Streaming and platforms and all this stuff has kind of torn apart the fabric of what we do in the NBA ecosystem or in the sports at large. And why not just focus on quality? Why not make it a quality experience? Why does everything have to be so diluted, due to the oversaturation of so many different things? Like, why not just make it better? And if you make something that's better, it will sell, which it does. That's the receipts of it all. That's my public service announcement. Portland at Los Angeles. Portland at Los Angeles. Where are we? Okay, Portland. Well, we're at Donovan Clingan land. Donovan Clingan comes into this season like 500 pounds lighter, now sitting on top 35 to 50 value, averaging a block, a steal, 1.3 triples, 10 points, 8 boards, solid percentages. Well done. And Portland, they had the kind of the dead coach bounce game, and then they had the this is going to be our season game. And this is tough business assessing this squad, but the good news is they're kind of where they need to be or where they should be. Clingan, of course, is doing the thing we all thought he could do. And again, I've said this on air probably 500 times. He is, I would look at him and I go, man, he's great, but I don't know how he's going to hold all that weight. And his knee looks like it's bad. And I don't think he's going to make it, but he's, he looks great right now. So for him to possibly keep this up would not be shocking. I kept trying to get him in drafts, but people were just overdrafting and maybe even underdrafting by the early returns. But like, he is good, and I wish I had gotten more. And that's just is what it is. So it's not 4 centers in Portland. It's 1 center, and it's Donovan Clingan. Tamani Kamara, 70 to 115 in terms of ranks and 33.5 minutes per game. He had a bad game on Sunday, and that dropped his value. He's a big B150 guy. I don't think he's any secret. I think he's a top, say, 3-4 defender in the NBA, and I think he's got plenty of game after that, and it's just going to be all gravy for Tamani Kamara. Jeremy Grant on the radar, top 60 to 80. If you have Jeremy Grant, try to sell him as fast as you can and run the other direction, because though this could continue in this configuration, it's just a lot of weird stuff going on in Portland, and he's always a guy that lets you down. Drew Holiday, top 75, 16.6 boards, 8 assists, 1.3 steals per game. He looks quick. There's no reason for this guy not to play. Scoot Henderson's not around. I don't know. Scoot Henderson is part of the plans. This looks like a Drew Holiday situation if I've ever seen one. He just needs to stay healthy, and I think he's going to blow by his ADP. Denny Abdia banged his leg on Sunday, shook it off, and stayed in. He's been a top 60 to 85 guy despite really big numbers. He has just 0.6 combined defensive stats in the small sample size, so take that for a grain of salt. Watch out for that banged leg. Shaden Sharp, top 200, because he's hitting just 28.8% of his shots on 20 attempts per game. Maybe pass the ball. I don't know. Yang Hansen, only 6 minutes, and that's that. Los Angeles. Okay, so Luka averaging 46 points, 3 triples. Those are just crazy numbers, like 62% field goal shooting, 80% from the line. I mean, if Luka's not averaging that line, the distance between he and Wemby is gargantuan. But he is, and he's out for about a week. So again, you get Austin Reeves. Now, Austin Reeves is a great, discussion point for how to get a player who's kind of at this point universally recognized as a good fantasy value. You get him by ranking him aggressively and appropriately, at ranks 15 in 8 cat and 12 in 9 cat, ADP in like the 30 to 40 range. This guy might be the best dribbler in the NBA. This guy can shoot. This guy might not be the best defender in the world, but he's going to be on the floor, and he's going to be one of the top players for LA with or without Luka Doncic on the floor. And it just is. And then you cut him loose, and he goes for 51. And yeah, it's the Sacramento Kings, and we could talk all day about the Sacramento Kings and how bad they are. But Austin Reeves is that dude, and he's inside the top 5. Credit to there were some sharps out there who were kind of pushing in the 20 to 25 range. Credit to you guys. It's the toughest play in fantasy sports, is to get the player who's kind of hyped universally and to get him ahead and to still get some profit margin off of it as well. DeAndre Ayton, he had a good night last night, 22 and 15. I don't want to bang on DeAndre Ayton. Yes, Luka was gone. LeBron's gone. Yes, it was the Kings, but he showed he has a pulse. He's inside the top 130 in 8 cat leagues, top 209 cat leagues because of some turnovers. 37.5% from the foul lines, really hurting him here. But he's averaging 16 and 10 after this last game. And I think if you pick DeAndre Ayton like top 50, top 60, he was ranked that high by numbers in the B150, and I kept having to push him down. It's like, I don't know if DeAndre Ayton is here to play this season. And this is a good sign for DeAndre Ayton. Just kind of stay the course here. I don't think anybody's going to be giving you big money for DeAndre Ayton in your fantasy league, so don't worry about that. Now, the next guy in Los Angeles is Jake LaRavia. He finally got on the board last night, 11.6 boards, 5 assists, 1 steal, 2 threes, 33 minutes against his old team in Sacramento. Now, I've watched LaRavia when he was in Memphis. He would always pop off for a good line in like 18 minutes per game, and it was like a steal, a block, and a 3, or maybe an additional cash counting stat. And you'd just be like, hey, this guy's like a top 125 value in 18 minutes, just kind of doing his thing here in Memphis. Well, then he came to Sacramento, and I would watch him cover the team's best player a lot. And he was just this connector, and he was just good. Like, in a team making lots of bad plays, he was just good. And he gets connected with his friend, Austin Reeves, and he lands in Los Angeles on a really cheap contract, and he can do all the things I just described, and yet at the same time, Los Angeles has put their money on the floor. And sometimes money isn't even money. It's just kind of like internal currency of who certain people want to play. Well, Gabe Vincent is one of those guys, and Marcus Smart is one of those guys. Those two guys have added into this mix of Luka Doncic-driven Luka ball, more mouths to feed, more touches on the perimeter. It's pushed Jake LaRavia off to the side. Well, once you have no Luka, once you have no LeBron, and once you have his buddy Austin Reeves on the court, calling the shots, now it's time for some LaRavia ball. Now, LaRavia is not going to be great. He's not going to be a mid-round guy, but he, at an elevated role and at an elevated projection that I had, was kind of a late-round guy, a little bit more than a late-round guy. I think it's going to be a little slow going for him. I think Luka ball is going to have its impact on the box score, and it's going to push people out until it sort of normalizes. And LeBron coming back might actually help out balance the scales there. Luka ball is good for Luka, not so much for everybody else, and he needs to find that balance, for his teams to hit their sweet spot. But LaRavia is good enough to be a big piece of what Los Angeles does, and he's good enough to get, say, top 100 numbers if all is going well. So in deeper leagues, I think you need to pay attention to that. I don't think in standard leagues, you need to get up and over your skis. Let's cover the teams that did not play, or not playing today, I should say. And we'll whip through them and get your questions going here shortly, and then get on the Twitter. Also, you can check out the waiver wire article over at sportsethos.com. First 5 waiver wire people are free. The rest, you got to be a member. New York at Miami. I don't know what day that is. Andre, if you can tell me what day that game is. But New York and Miami. Mikal Bridges on fire, top 20 to 30, 16 points and a full stat line. Everything's good for him. And I think this move to a Mike Brown offense, when I looked at like who are the guys this is going to benefit, obviously it wasn't going to benefit Jalen Brunson, but it was like Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, top 40 so far. Brunson doing just fine with top 20, but like Karl Anthony Towns, top 35, despite dealing with quad issues. Those were the guys I thought it would benefit. Josh Hart, it's been bad, and there's going to be better days ahead, but maybe not so much him. His fall has been precipitous, and I don't know if he's a catch and shoot kind of guy. I really think they got to just let Josh Hart get as many fast break buckets as possible, but top 250 for Josh Hart. New York, not a real mystery, but I do think it's interesting early on that you got Bridges and Anunoby dealing or benefiting from possibly, I don't want to get over the skis with this, but possibly new elements of a Mike Brown offense. Norman Powell, huge fast start. This is we all knew this was coming, and here it is. He's a top 15 guy to start the season. 31 minutes, 24 points, 3 triples, 7 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 91.3% from the foul line. Okay, so All those numbers are coming back. Tyler Hero going to be like mid-November-ish. He's trying to get back faster, but they'll probably hold him back until then. It's the Norm Powell show until then. There's not better options on the floor than Norm Powell. Bam Adebayo is not a better option. Khalil Ware is not a better option. We'll get into them in a second here. This is Norm's team. And then when the Hero comes back, it will not be Norm's team anymore. And it won't help that Andrew Wiggins gets better as the season goes on as well. But for now, Norm top 50 minimum going forward. So when that news hit for Tyler Hero, it was definitely Norm. Okay, so all these games are from Sunday. These games just happened. Is my brain even on? What was this? Yeah, that was from Sunday. I watched that game. Ha! My name is Aaron. Who else in Miami? Jaime Jaquez. Top 70 right now, 28 and a half minutes a game, 16, 7, and 4, 71% from the field. So that number's coming back. I think the ranking for Jaime Jaquez is almost always top 125. It was top 125 last year before Miami, if they got mad about the Jimmy Butler commercial. I don't know if they were like close friends and Jaquez was just in the doghouse. I don't know what it is, but in the preseason, they kind of signaled Jaquez as the guy. Now, throughout three games, I don't know, it's 3 or 2. Jaquez has gotten his minutes. He's the guy. I think you just slate him in for 100, 125 value and you call it a day. Jovic top 70 after 2 games, 25 minutes, 14.5 points, 2.5 triples, 4.5 boards. It plays 1.5 combined defensive stats, good percentages. It's not exciting, but it plays. And he's the connective piece between the two bigs, Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo. Ware just top 80 to 120 minutes. I think that's kind of a good news, bad news thing. Just 10 points. They're not playing these guys together. And it's going to be a story all season. And I just don't think you can, because I don't think Bam's quick enough for them to be able to do it. I think it presents too many issues. Certain matchups, if you have a big that looks like Bam and you have another big that looks like Khalil Ware, and that size to be able to put these guys on the floor together, it will work out at that point in time. But it could be very frustrating for Ware if the numbers aren't there. People who took a big stab at Ware, like top 50, top 60, with big expectations for him. The promise is there, the talent is there, the situation is just not quite there for him. Davion Mitchell, late round value, good games, bad games, and in-betweens, 9 points, 8.5 assists. It's going to be there for the foreseeable future. Drew Smith just outside the top 150 deep leagues. You can kind of keep an eye on that. Andrew Wiggins, 58.3% shooting from the foul line, keeping him outside of the top 200 so far. Let's get to Charlotte and Washington. I watched that game. I watched LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball, it's like equal parts. I think I'm enthusiastic to watch it, and I'm also like so disappointed watching him play basketball. It is wild. He had a massive triple-double. He's averaging a massive line. This is the LaMelo Ball story if we've ever seen it. If you drafted him, you're screaming at the top of the mountains, I told you so. I told you this was the year. And we'll see if it's the year. Miles Bridges was one of our B150 values, a couple rounds ahead of his draft status. And he's at that number right now. And he's just going to be that guy. He looks like Miles Bridges. Brandon Miller left with a shoulder injury. Huge news. We should look for an update to come in the next couple days here. And it was like one of these non-contact dealies. He like reached and it looked like he tweaked it. So we just have to see if something got torn on the inside of that shoulder girdle and what's up with that. And it would be a really devastating bad luck kind of a situation as he's dealt with that in his career early on. Colin Sexton's the guy that's really stepped up into the void, top 90, 19 points, 4 assists. Con Knippel got in on the action. This game against Washington pushed him up into the top 100. I'm not a Con Knippel guy. But if you've got Brandon Miller out, it does make sense that he's on the floor to take 3-point shots. And there are players in LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, and Colin Sexton that can get an advantage and kick the ball out to him. So I think the situation's right. I don't think I'm not a huge Knippel guy in terms of his ability to stay on the floor defensively. And therefore, it just will be what it will be. But he might have a nice little fantasy run here if Brandon Miller is out for an extended amount of time. The other thing going on in Charlotte is the center situation with Ryan Kalkbrenner. He dropped to being a top 100 guy after being a top 50 guy. These are 3 days worth of stats or 3 games. It's silly kind of to value these guys. But also, if you can do the numbers right, you can actually get a valuation here. But he dropped to being a top 100 play after a slow Sunday with just 4 points, 5 boards, no defensive stats, and a 22-minute start. And this is going to be the story with him. I think there's going to be times he gets played off of the floor. If he stays on the floor, he can get points, boards, and blocks. And that will compute to fantasy value. If it all averages out to be a top 125 play, I will be a little surprised. Moussa Diabate, I like a lot better at this stage in his career. If I had to pick one of these two players to be on the floor, draft status aside, management and all that stuff aside, I would pick Moussa because he has a really good athletic combination vertically, horizontally. He's going to cover a lot of ground out there. I think that this makes a team better than having a guy who can kind of just sort of stand in the paint and block shots and just sort of have that vertical rim protection. That's my little piece on those two guys. Unfortunately, Diabate really struggles in fantasy leagues. He's shooting 56.3% from the foul line. Pardon me, my notes are a little bit of a mess here. And he went 80% this last game. So I wonder what he was shooting before this game, like 2% from the foul line. I don't know. This drives his number down. He's averaging 10 and 7 with a combined 2 steals and blocks per game, 61% from the field. So it's your classic big man, can't hit free throws, has a good field goal percentage and get you some steals and blocks and some boards kind of a guy. It's probably not worth the time that we'll spend trying to suss out which one of these two guys is the one that you want on a fantasy team. Probably top 125, 150 for both. Washington, I hate burying this guy toward the end of the show. I could have led with him. Keyshawn George, top 4 heading into yesterday's games. He dropped out of that after not having a massive scoring and stat output explosion. He's a great story there. He's one of the better B150 guys that we had. And he's going to, I think I ranked him at like 60 or something, 60 or 70. I don't have it in front of me right now. He's just going to be that good. And they want him to play. He was one of the people in the story that The Athletic wrote about. He's going to be in the game all the time. He's one of their better players. He's just going to be out there being healthy, hopefully, as a young player. He's going to continue to find his game. He can impact the game in multiple ways. He plays defense. Like, there's just so much to like about Keyshawn George. And the thing about his projection and his rank is it's all kind of based on him not being a great field goal percentage guy. What if he gets that figured out? That's going to be amazing, and we can't really project for that. So he even has another gear that he can get to. Trey Johnson, talked about him earlier. Alexander Sarr, top 70. I think with Sarr, I just kind of like always just hope he just doesn't get hurt, and I'm not too excited about having him on a fantasy squad. I think the hype kind of outweighs the productivity and the potential there. Chris Middleton's mopping up minutes. Bub Carrington's not that good right now. Cam Whitmore's not that good right now. CJ McCollum is going to do CJ McCollum things. This team's actually kind of easy to read, and I don't think Champagnie and Vukcevic are in the plans right now, and I think that they're going to be in the plans at some point in time. The coach of the Wizards last night at his post-game said that he really liked the way Justin Champagnie played, and I think it's easy to like a guy like that, and I think it's easy to like a guy like Tristan Vukcevic because they do so many good things on the court. Problem is right now they're just not important enough to get into the rotation, and when they do, top 75 potential for both guys. So they were kicked to the waiver wire by me in a bunch of different situations, but I also held in a couple cases. And I'll just leave it at that. Milwaukee, they played Cleveland. Giannis is on fire. He's a legit top 10 play in roto leagues right now, telling you kind of how big these numbers are. 36 points, 16 boards, 7 assists, just crushing the stat sheet. Doesn't hurt that Kevin Porter's out. I'm sure he's taken on extra responsibilities because of that. Porter, probably a couple more games. And I think what I'm looking for here is Ryan Rollins to see, can he keep up enough with and without Porter in the picture to just stay on the radar, because he's quick. He plays defense. He's a player I like. He had 14 points, 4 boards, 8 assists, 3 steals, and a triple in Sunday's game. It pushed him all the way up to the top 50 in valuation in a small sample size, 31 minutes per game to do that. It's like, if he can just stay above the cut line, I think over the course of the year, this team's going to fall apart and he can be the last guy standing. Cole Anthony can't really ever get anything going. Gary Trent lets the ball go through his legs in big moments in the playoffs. I know that's a little bit unfair, but Gary Trent, not reliable, not somebody you want to build around. Ryan Rollins is that guy. Elsewhere, Miles Turner, really slow start, not that hard to see coming. I mean, you've got Giannis, who plays a particular brand of ball, and then you got Miles Turner, who played the opposite brand of ball for the last couple of years. These two taking a while to mesh makes perfect sense to me. Turner outside of the top 100, just 9.3 points per game to start the season and pretty much crap after that. AJ Green had a nice game. I think he's going to be a decent top 125 kind of a guy, maybe 150, 175. It just kind of remains to be seen, but I think that he fits the bill there. And Bobby Portis really struggling at the bottom of the top 250. Indiana, these guys, they are weird. I mean, Rick Carlisle's just searching right now, and I get it. Like Benedict Mathurin goes down, after Andrew Nembhard goes down, after Tyrese Halliburton goes down, and you can't play fast anymore, guys. You just can't. You don't have enough good, fast, threats. Like the team's like, sure, you want to run? Well, you can't because you don't have anybody to run. And it's really just mucked it up for everybody. Obi Toppin went out of this game as well with a hamstring injury. He was top 125 before it, getting a ton of minutes. He was their answer to the issue of not knowing what to do with Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson. Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson might be the biggest fallers in fantasy leagues right now. Not only do they not look good, especially in the case of Isaiah Jackson. Isaiah Jackson just doesn't look good. The Jay Huff looks lost out there. Like nobody's producing anything. When you looked at Jarris Walker as a possible beneficiary for all of this, and he's not getting it done. This team just has like this air of like, we can't go anywhere we want to on offense, and we can't get anything done. We just can't do anything at all. So I dropped those guys in a lot of spots. I suspect that they, Huff and Jackson, as I suspect they'll be available in coming weeks. I suspect if one of them has a good game, they'll get picked up, based on sort of reputation. But this is bad. And it's not just bad for them personally in fantasy leagues. It's bad for this team as a whole. This team does well if they're up and down the floor and somebody like Jay Huff is running into a screen, having the ball handler go around him and popping and getting the ball and shooting the three at will. Not this, whatever it is that they're doing right now. You've got guys like Ray J. Dennis out here putting up top 100 value in the last couple games, but really being almost like, hey, Ray J, can you save us, please? Because you're the only guy who can get a bucket right now. Benedict Mathurin is getting his imaging in Dallas today, right now, where they play on Wednesday. This is, he was in a walking boot. I don't know. It's a big toe issue for a guy that relies on explosion. Toe injuries are the worst. And this feels to me like 2 to 3 weeks. I think what this does is it makes the case not just for like Jarris Walker or Ben Shepherd, neither of which have produced 150, 175 at best for these guys. I think you got to go and get TJ McConnell stashed. And I know it's going to be a couple weeks, and I don't know if he's going to come back and be healthy and it's all going to work out for him, but it's they need one of their guys back, and it might be him, McConnell, that comes back and really stabilizes this team and puts together something of a top 75, top 100 stat set right when he returns. But it's, he's also injured. It's just a bad news situation in Indiana right now. And I don't see it getting any better. Aaron Nesmith outside of the top 200 as well. Oh, Tony Bradley, by the way, might be the winning center in Indiana. I was able to pick up Tony Bradley in 30 deep and like laughing. It's Tony Bradley. Of course it's Tony Bradley. We all knew it was Tony Bradley. The Clippers, aside from the debacle in game one, Harden has started off fast. Kawhi got it going on Sunday. So those two dudes are going. John Collins is inside the top 80 to 90. So he's right where we thought he would be. A little mini B150 guy right there. Ivica Zubac finally got ahead of Brook Lopez in fantasy leagues on Sunday, both in about the 75 to 115 range. If you told me that Brook Lopez would finish with a better number, I wouldn't be shocked. It's a bad season ahead for Zubac. Zubac was getting drafted in the 40s and the 50s, and it's going to be tough unless Brook kind of just completely fades out and says, it's your role. I just think if I had to pick the two players, I'd pick Brook. And that would be that. Bradley Beal, practically non-existent. Bogdan Bogdanovic is not right yet. Chris Paul, 15 minutes per game. And the Clippers are a little bit easy to predict right now. That leaves one more team, and that's the Sacramento Kings. What do I say about the Kings? Well, Malik Monk's pretty good right now. He looks good as a basketball player, too, by the way. Zach LaVine has a green light to shoot, and he's going to do it. And he's scoring 31 a game. He's a top 50 guy. Monk is top 25 to 35 right now. These guys, that the Kings need players who can do stuff. And Monk and LaVine and Schroeder, who's about top 50-ish right now, they can do stuff. DeRozan, for as much as he's like kind of bad for them, he's a player that can actually get a shot, and be respected. And the reason why this is so important for them is you get past, Domantas Sabonis in this list, and it gets bad really quick. I mean, you got Keon, who's been kind of scared into not playing offense at all. You got Russell Westbrook, who has no problem playing offense, but it's always all bad. Drew Eubanks can't really play. I mean, these are the guys that are behind this crew, and you need to get production out of. And it's not always the case that Zach LaVine's production is good for everybody else. Schroeder, I've seen him play better, like in Eurobasket and for the Detroit Pistons, though his number is really good right now. Like in fantasy leagues, Dennis Schroeder at this range, just crushing his output and his draft stock. But those numbers will regress, as will the numbers for Malik Monk. And that will be that. Keegan Murray, when he returns, it's not like he's going to get a ton of shots, but it's going to balance. All this stuff will balance itself out. Oh, and by the way, there'll be an implosion in Sacramento in T-minus like 3 weeks in Sacramento. So that's going to do it for our 30-team spin. We're at the 1 hour and 36-minute mark. That hit the under. We're going to get into some questions, rapid fire style, and then I'm going to be posting on Twitter. You can get some questions answered there. I'll be posting in Discord as we lead up to the start of games today. So go ahead and send me your questions everywhere. Andre, what are the questions of the day? Jeff Martin, thank you for your question, sir, asks, in 9-cat, are Beal, Eason, or Collier droppable? Is it worth it to pick up Ryan Rollins? I think so. I think Collier not as attractive as a 9-cat asset because of the turnovers. Eason has some upside, but it really worries me that they came out and just declared that this guy's not playing back-to-backs this season. It's not surprising given his history. His role has been reduced. I think there's a future with Eason being good, but with Rollins, you get somebody who might be good all season, and he's not going to handle the crap out of the ball and have a really bad turnover number if you're even concerned about turnovers at all. I think this is a great time to take a chance on him. And really with Bradley Beal, you're asking yourself, is there a potential scenario where Bradley Beal is as good as the name value would entail? And can he be a top 50 guy anymore? I think the answer is no. Can he be a top 75 guy anymore? I kind of think the answer is no. So you're really holding Bradley Beal with the hopes he can be a top 100, top 125 guy. He started a season off bad, some bad vibes in the offseason, just kind of reading between the lines and stuff with Bradley Beal. So I say, you know what, go get the young guy, take Ryan Rollins and take it to the bank. Don Sicario asks, I was offered Dyson for VJ. Woo-wee. I love these trades. Dyson for VJ, 9-cat, 12 teams. Would I take the trade? Yeah, I would. And it's scary. It feels like you're making a mistake. I would definitely do that deal because there's a lot of different ways it can fall apart for VJ in a 9-cat format. And with Dyson, he is built for a 9-cat format. The valuations on that thing could be stark. Feels bad, I know it, but I think you do that deal. Beasley 10 asks, 9-cat, 12 team, John Collins or PJ Washington? That's a really good question because PJ Washington looks like he's on the verge of something. He's starting, he's getting minutes. That said, I would take the solidity. I would take the solid role of John Collins if I can talk in the hour 45 minute of this show. John Collins is who I would take there. I think his role, I think his stats set. I think if you get a couple injuries, especially to the center position, John Collins could really be nice. We're talking like top 50 nice. Dennis asks, 12-team drop Eason for Cameron Johnson or Wizards Trey Johnson. Yes and yes. I think Cam Johnson is going to be good, but not great, but at least you can rely upon him. And I think Trey Johnson has, like, if we're talking March and he hasn't pooped out hitting the rookie wall, which is a concern, I think he's got top 50 potential in March. And heading into especially a playoff format, that could be game breaking. Oh, good morning, Beasley. Good morning to you. Thank you for the kind words. Dennis asked, do we drop Shaden Sharp for Nembhard's stash? I think so. Nembhard, it doesn't feel like he's out like super long term. And I think Nembhard is a top 100 guy, maybe a top 75 guy when he's healthy and kind of thrown into the mix. And of course, he has some injury risk with Sharp. It's those percentages, it's the lack of all of the stats, it's the scoring heavy output. I mean, if your format rewards Shaden Sharp stats, then the conversation's a little bit different there. On the whole, in a standard league, I think it's going to be Nembhard's stash. Dr. A reposted this stream. Thanks, Dr. A. You're the greatest. And I shall reply to your text now every single time within 72 hours. Hey, Brew, says Yams. Who's the best streaming option to replace Ant? Bones, maybe? Bones did a few silly things in that game. I don't think it's going to be Bones. I think the best streaming option to replace Ant is going to be Terrence Shannon Jr. on the bounce back game. I might be wrong, but I actually, even the risks, I would rather risk on a dud from Shannon rather than a dud from Bones. Daniel Paisley says, great show. Thank you so much. We do it for you guys. That's why we want to do all this stuff here at Sports Ethos. He asks, oh, there's a question involved too. Would I drop Eve Misi for Derek Queen in a 9-cat? That's a really good question. I really like that question a lot because Misi, at the beginning of the year, looked like he was going to be a 30-minute guy and kind of no questions asked. And even though the stats aren't quite there, you go, oh, what if he learned a few things? What if things bounce in his favor? An athletic player. Let's give Misi the benefit of the doubt here. But that's a lot of what ifs, and that's a lot of great scenarios for that guy to just give you late round production. And if Derek Queen is just this stat goblin, bad defense, but good stat guy kind of a guy, or maybe me and several other respected analysts just did not get it right. And that's really the basis of why I actually made plays to add Derek Queen. It's like sometimes you just get it wrong. And if he's got a good stat set, and if he's got production, I'd rather take the shot at Derek Queen than ride the late round with Eve Misi. Good Joe asks, Brandon Pod, would I drop him for Jabari Smith or Bryce Sensabaugh, who are available on the wire? Pod is interesting because I do think he's actually going to be better with Jimmy Butler as well. Now, better for Pod looks like top 100, top 110 kind of value throughout the rest of the season. Jabari Smith, same bucket. Like Jabari Smith is basically Brandon Pojemski value, but maybe like less injury risk and less risk of not being able to hack it. I mean, Jabari Smith does what he does. You know what it's going to be. And I don't know who was the last guy on the page there. Andre just flipped it away. Sensible. I would do the Sensabaugh thing. I think like you want to just try to find lightning in a bottle this round. If you got a guy with a late round ceiling, see if you can find somebody else that's got a mid round ceiling. Paisley asks, what is Taylor Hendricks' rest of season dynastic outlook in Utah? Is he worth rostering in 12-team, 14-team leagues? Hendricks, I was super excited about him last year, and I'll say this about what I see on film. Maybe the ever slightest degradation of physical explosion, but everything else is in a good place. He looks like a reasonable facsimile of what he was the year before. So good on him for his rehab and all of those efforts. So I think he can be a top 125 guy this season, and I think he can be better than that in the long term, maybe like top 75 in a perfect scenario where he develops well. Admiral Nita, hold Reed Shepard or Jalen Suggs, 10-team category leagues. Okay. I mean, both of these guys you can make a case for dropping in a shallow league while the going is not good. I think Suggs is a top 75 guy when he's playing well, and I think Reed Shepard is a top 75 guy when he's playing well. So with that in mind and knowing that top 75 is really the marker you guys are looking at in 10-team leagues and top 85, top 95, guys with upside that produce at that level. I think they're holdable, but I would want to know who's the guy you're going to go out and get. So it's a wishy-washy answer, as you would totally appreciate on a show like this. Harry Giles, what player should I get? The Harry Giles. How's basketball going, Harry? What player should I get for the value of Grimes and Hartenstein in a 6-man league? Oh, you must have been hanging out with Doc. I'm going to have a 2-man draft. Grimes and Hartenstein. I think Grimes profiles as a legit top 75 guy over the season. Hartenstein more of a top 125. Thinks that Grimes is more of a 125 guy. And Hartenstein is more of like an 80. I think you could probably, if you want to pair those two guys together, if you're doing the 2-for-1, you're probably going to target something in the top 75 range. Otherwise, you just ride Grimes and do the deal and don't do the deal. So I don't know. I don't think you're going to get anything for those two. I think you just ride that side of the equation, unless you want to try to put Hartenstein out there on his own and see if you can get yourself something in the top 75 to 100 range back. Somebody that's not performing well right now. One of the guys I mentioned on this show. Admiral Nita says, thanks. I say, thank you. Thank you so much. Paisley, is Rui a must grab in 10-team 9-cat head-to-head? No, because Rui does this every year. He has a big start and then he fades, and then you don't have LeBron James yet. And so I think you don't must grab Rui, but I would definitely stop what you're doing right now and get Trey Johnson instead of Rui. I would literally stop the show, go do that right now. Thoughts on Mamu being Pirtle's backup? They love him in Toronto. I don't think he's going to be a fantasy guy. He might have a week or two there, but they love him in Toronto. He's a vibes guy. He's a unique skill set. He does a lot of different things on the floor, but I wouldn't be looking at him in fantasy unless you're in a 30-team league. Jared Allen and Rudy Gobert are both washed? Question mark? No, but it's close for Gobert. It's probably coming next season. Allen, I think, is just sort of like a slow start that you see all the time. You're kind of garden variety slow start. In fact, it was I watched Allen do something incredibly athletic the other day. Asar Thompson was doing like a Space Jam dunk where his head kept rising. And when he went to throw it down on Allen, Allen said, hell no, rejected it. And I thought, good on you, Jared Allen. That's a nice move there. Trade Jalen Duren for Fox? Yes. Fox was falling to me all day long in drafts. Fox is one of, unless he had like a weight gain issue, unless he enjoyed the food too much this offseason, which has been an issue with him as recently as 3-4 years ago. He is like one of the top 5 players in the NBA, maybe top 10-ish now. Maybe there's been a little bit of a slide. I'd have to do some ranks or something, but like in terms of being uncoverable, and you put him next to Wemby, I know there's a lot of mouths to feed there in San Antonio, but holy moly, Fox could easily be a top 25 guy this season, and it wouldn't shock me at all. In fact, I ranked him as such. Who's better at the end of my roster, Ace Bailey or Trey Johnson, 12-team 9-cat head-to-head? Look, I love what Ace Bailey brings to the table. There are going to be possible, maybe if not probable, issues to the stat set, and I think Trey Johnson does not have those issues. I'm going to take Trey Johnson here every single time. Hezzy Central. Should I drop Dyson Daniels? No, do not. Do not do that. Hang on. Hang on like it's a Titanic in your jack hanging onto a... I don't know what I'm talking about, guys. Somebody, where's the hook? Somebody hook me off this show. Yep, there's the hook right there. I see you. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you guys so much. I love doing these shows. I do all this research, and it's got to go somewhere. And the fact that you guys all get to see it and take advantage of it and run rampant in your fantasy leagues is great. I love the fact that you guys get to see what we do here as a company, putting out a premium product and trying to lead the way in this industry, kind of surviving and thriving and doing all the things. I don't want it to go the way of streaming, the way that's kind of knocked everything out, whether it's at a team, NBA team level, NBA league level, or fantasy sports level. So thank you guys all for your support. Check out the website. Check out a membership. Watch out for all the cool things we're going to announce in the next week or two. I can't wait for you guys to see them. I will be back tomorrow with Doc. We have shows all week long. We got shows at night with the box score breakdown. That show's been amazing. Check that out. Make sure you follow all of our writers here. They're all amazing. analysts and people. Everybody's pulling in the same direction. I can't say enough about this team that allowed me to write my first waiver wire column in 10 years. Holy moly. Maybe one day I'll do a 10,000 word column again. That will be amazing. Thank you to my doctors for making this possible. And that's going to do it for Fantasy NBA today, the 30-team edition presented by FanDuel. We'll see you guys tomorrow.